Not a problem.
What? They go.
Reality's here. He's trying to crash the party. Reality? Who let him in? You're sad that people are mean? Well, I'm sorry. The world isn't one big liberal arts college campus.
I don't have an agenda. Like, I want people to do something. I need them to do something. I want them to avoid irrationality.
I guess what interests me is just like what interests everybody else. It's just sort of what feels real.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing this morning? Your eyes are not deceiving you. We are back for yet another edition of Real News. It's been such a long time. I've seen you, since I've seen your face, since you've seen my face. Is it still looking all right? I think we're doing okay here, Sean. It's been a while. Sean and I have been out working the fields. We've been doing stuff. I'm not playing y'all. We've been it's been long days, Sean. Yeah, it's been long days. A lot of doors knocked, a lot of pavement pounded. You know how the thing goes, man. That's the game.
I'm muted. There we go. There was this terrible song in the 90s. And it was like, I would walk 500 miles an hour. That's what we did. That's the story of Shine and Mr. Henry over the past few days. But we've been doing the good work for the people.
That's right, man. The good work for the people. We've been out there knocking doors in North Carolina, getting the message out, getting this stuff done. By the way, if you're new to this program here, this program you stumbled upon this morning is entitled Real News. Now, how you stumbled upon this, I don't know, but welcome to the family. We love you. That's what we do here. We are a family. We develop a family. The motto of this program is we want to create a scenario, a situation, a community by which we can have calm, cordial dialogue and maybe even lead to some disagreements. So that when we do have disagreements, we're having disagreements amongst friends and neighbors, not amongst enemies. Vitally important, especially for a time right now. Welcome back, everybody. How's everybody doing? My name is Mr. Henry. David Sean Thompson sitting over here to my left, your right. Then who knows? They might be flying in here. A bunch of folks on Facebook, a bunch of folks on YouTube. Let's dive right into it because I have a jam-packed show. All right. One of the things we do here in this Real News community is something entitled Greatest Audience in the Nation Appreciation. That's where, I don't know, we just give a shout out. What books you're into, what philosophy you're going through, what are you reading, what's on your mind, what stories you're into. Do you need help with anything? A pause there. Any small businesses that are trying to innovate, bring this stuff to our attention. You need prayer concerns for anything. You need a hot meal put on your table. In that vein, our very own Jessica, I think she's listening to Facebook right now. Jessica told us before she just stumbled upon this program one morning. I'd love to know the story how, but she stuck around. She's part of the family now, and we absolutely love her. Jessica, what's up? How you doing? She needs help, by the way. It's the first thing linked in the show notes this morning. By the way, every single morning you'll see in the description section of this video a little Evernote tab link. If you ever click on that link, it'll go to all the show notes that Shine and I put together before the program. This is how we run the show. When you hear me talking to him off air, look at this, we're all looking through this same Evernote thing. The first thing linked in the Evernote for this morning says, help our Real News family members. Help our Real News family members. The first thing you see there is a GoFundMe page. Now, Jessica reached out to me sometime last week and said, look, my uncle's got a situation. He was hit by a car. Now, when you hear hit by a car, you normally, at least I did, you normally think, okay, he was in a car accident. All right, so we're doing a GoFundMe for a car accident. Yeah, man, I would love to help out. Totally different scenario. There's also a story linked in here from a local affiliate about actually what happened. This man was physically struck. His body was physically struck by an SUV. A terrible situation. I mean, a horrific situation. Go read the report. This happened on August 25th. It wasn't a mere car accident. His body, like I said, was physically struck by another SUV. The guy driving that SUV didn't stop. He didn't offer aid. He was found 2 miles down the road fixing his mirror and wiping blood off of his SUV. True story, y'all. Jessica's uncle. His name's Uncle Joe. He goes by Uncle Joe. So he's hit. You can read the report right there. He has extensive medical bills going on right now. And also due to the COVID shutdown stuff, he also recently lost his job. So now he's out health insurance and he was just struck by an SUV. I'm telling y'all, he has medical expenses from a broken hip, a permanent pin put in, a completely torn rotator cuff, 2 different surgeries, hundreds, if not thousands of stitches later. I'm telling you, man, this guy needs some help, all right? So what I'm asking for right now is, of course, money contributions are exactly what we're going for. But if you want to reach out and console Jessica, let her know that you're praying for the family, let her know that you're there to help her out, and spread this message to anybody out there. I'm telling y'all, this is how crowdfunding works. If any random person you come across gives $1, well, 20,000 random people later, we got $20,000 there. Now, don't we? That's how the math works. It's that simple. But it's in spreading that message and in spreading the message of positivity and helping someone out in a terrible situation, a terrible time like this. COVID shutdown, losing job, no health insurance, then you get hit by an SUV. Literally hit by an SUV. Tens and thousands of dollars in medical expenses later. Help out Uncle Joe. I'm telling y'all right now, please go see this GoFundMe. Share the GoFundMe around. Throw $1, throw a couple dollars, throw whatever you can Uncle Joe's way. Let's help this man out. Jessica, we love you. Looking out for you. We're going to spread this message around. Local stories now. We got some property tax stuff, man. Mayor Cooper, hey, we got a update on the hostage situation in Nashville. Is that too much to say, Sean?
No.
No? Okay.
He's the one threatening, right?
There he is.
You're just artistically abstracting. Even though our culture and society has a really hard time abstracting right now and takes everything literally, he's abstracting.
Yeah.
But it'll make sense when you hear the headline.
Yeah. All right. So let me bring everyone up to speed. So Sean and I are out there and pounding the pavement, knocking doors, walking 500 miles. It felt like that each day out in North Carolina. And the news drops while we're out there in North Carolina that we have been approved officially. The number of signatures has met the mark. I think the total. Now, we walked in there with over 20,000. Metro government stopped counting after 12,500. They're just like, all right, done. We verified at least 12,500. Just
so
put them on the
awesome
ballot.
Here, I don't think we can count it. You know.
Yeah, I don't want to get depressed anymore about the remaining however many thousands right now. Oh man, so they stopped counting after 12,500. I assume. I don't know. I just know that that's how many they verified and they put it on the ballot. So that's the story we got, that we were officially on the ballot for December 5th. Now, I'm sure everyone knows, if you don't know what's going on in Nashville, we have a situation with the budget. They proposed a 34% property tax increase. Here at Americans for Prosperity, we said, we don't think that's a good idea. Why don't you cut a bunch of stuff first? Seems to make sense. That's the TLDR of where we are. We caught this up. Now, this petition is on the ballot for December 5th. And then stuff just broke loose, man. And I know some of y'all are tired of hearing about this property tax situation, but I think the developments are making this, if not a national story, because Tommy Lawrence spoke about it on Fox News last night, if not a national story, it's a story of a city government, of government in general, just sort of doing something against the express will of its people. That's the story that we have right now. Here's the first headline. And this is the hostage situation that I'm talking about. The Center Square headline. Nashville mayor considers cuts to police, fire, school budgets if 34% property tax hike is repealed. Now, already, you know, the hostage situation is the same thing Governor Newsom tried to pull back, 5-6 months ago when the COVID shutdown first happened. Said, hey, federal government, yeah, you better bail me out. If you don't bail me out, I'm just going to start getting rid of police officers, man. Now, the odd thing that happened at the back end is that fast forward 2 or 3 months from now the entire state is already calling to get rid of police officers, not because of the bailout situation or lack thereof, but just because they don't want police anymore. So you pick your poison on that one, liberals. Nevertheless, let's go forward.
Yeah, you call it a hostage situation, though, Grant. I also call it a tantrum. That's what a lot of these, I mean, more Gavin Newsom than Mayor Cooper. Because, I'm sure people are telling him this. But Gavin Newsom, I mean, all these people, when they just don't get what they want, they just start threatening services.
Yeah, dude.
The mayor of L.A. did it, too. Mayor of L.A. did it. And lots of people are doing it. And it's either been response to COVID regulations or some of this tax stuff.
And let me say from the forefront here, and I'm going to repeat this a little bit throughout the story, that like Sean just said, this is a national story that has now become local. And this talking point in particular of cutting vital essential services first, it's asinine. I mean, it's prima facie absurd. On its face, it just doesn't make sense. There's very little logic behind this. Let me tell you the story, and then I'll catch everyone up. I'm getting too much into pontification. Here's the story. If Nashville taxpayers, this is the Center Square story, if Nashville taxpayers vote to repeal the city's 34% property tax increase in December, Mayor John Cooper said he's considering dramatic cuts to school and fire department budgets and reducing the Metro police force by 1/3. Really? Are you? For real? He says, quote, This would cripple our city and gut essential city services. Gut essential city services. After 2 natural disasters this year, we don't need a self-inflicted one. Now, stating that a repeal would cause a $332 million budget deficit. Let me pause there. That's a for real thing. It's dire. It's got to be dealt with, and it's a problem. But the terrible spending decisions of the past and your inability, Metro government, to not save up for some type of rainy day fund, which you were told on multiple occasions to do so. The state comptrollers come down there and spanked y'all several times to say, if you don't get your house in order, bro, I'm taking it from you. That's exactly what happened last night as well.
You know what I'm thinking, Grant? You know, like, how does a city the size of Nashville not at least have around 500 million, at least 500 million in rainy day?
I don't know, man.
I mean,
I don't know.
That's crazy. I know that. What is the state's rainy day fund? I think it's like a little over $1 billion, right? Something like that.
We have like a $2 billion surplus.
$2 billion,
something like that. I don't know what the rainy day fund is in particular, but it's substantial. I'll say,
it's okay. Yeah. Well, but I would think a city like Nashville would at least be running like a 500 million rainy day fund, if not like close to $1 billion, like constantly adding to that because we've had tornadoes in Middle Tennessee.
Right.
It's like a thing. It's like not an every year thing. But it's like a once every 5-year thing or once every 7-year thing.
Or it's at least a thing to get ready for something. You know, I mean, we've had floods like in Middle Tennessee, right?
It's almost like living on the beach in Florida with the tornadoes. Not quite, maybe like half of that, but enough to where you'd think you'd want a rainy day fund.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that, right? Between floods, tornadoes, some type of natural disaster that could hit. I mean, it doesn't matter. There's something you should be getting ready for. Now, that $332 million budget deficit is a very real thing. Cooper, here's the important part. Center Square hits this on the head. Center Square is a local affiliate here. Does a fairly good job. Actually, does a great job of stuff. But Cooper said Cooper did not outline any potential plans to reduce pension or lifetime health care benefits for Metro Council members or make any kind of drastic reductions to the city's workforce. And this is what he's being just destroyed with right now. His first go-to is we're just going to cut all the vital services. Don't you call me a fearmonger.
You know what's funny is in that article, Grant, it's like he said we're going to cut recycling. That's a signal to his voters. Right. Like, we can't even recycle. And everyone's like, shock, clutch my pearls.
Clutch my pearls. Gosh, there's some good Facebook comments I need to get to here in just a second as well. Clutch my pearls. And this is what, actually, this is what he said. Going on with what Sean just said. Instead, Mayor Cooper proposed trash collection services could be reduced to twice monthly, and recycling collections could be eliminated entirely. The Nashville Fire Department could be asked to cut an estimated 557 positions, including 12 ambulance, 31 fire companies, 17 fire inspectors. 4 of Metro Nashville Police Departments, 8 precincts, could be closed, and the city's police force could be reduced by 1/3, causing, quote, dramatic increase in response time delays. So apparently Mayor Cooper is telling me that if he doesn't get his 34% property tax increase, my house is going to burn 25% longer. If he doesn't get his 34% property tax increase, he's telling me that I'm going to have at least at a minimum a 33.3, repeating, of course, % chance of the police taking longer to show up to my problem.
The money shot is that next line in that after that paragraph. That's the money shot. That's the flare gun, I need help. That's the bring in the cavalry. That's what Cooper's trying to do with that line.
You talking about the schools?
Yeah, and it's just sitting there all by itself in this article. Like, it's like way more important than fire and ambulances. Schools could also face dramatic cuts.
Schools could also face dramatic cuts. And it's like he separated that out, right? Yeah. I mean, police, fire, crime, whatever. But schools could face dramatic cuts. Now that's...
The roads are literally going to melt right into the ground. and it's just going to be dirt, too.
No. Now, part of the reason why we're finding this so comical, and some of y'all are thinking that way they probably shouldn't be laughing about this so much. This is a serious, dire situation, and it absolutely is. But let me just lend a little.
Everything? Are you kidding me?
All right. Mayor Cooper said cutting 25% of Metro Nashville's public schools budget, unfortunately, would render the school district unrecognizable to students and families. So let me pause here for a second, okay? Look, I don't presume to know Metro government's budget well enough to even begin to ascertain where Mayor Cooper's pulling the specificity of these claims from. But I think that's the point also. I think the point is that nobody really knows that. And in that lack of knowledge and lack of understanding and lack of availability of information, Mayor Cooper is taking this and he's exploiting that lack of information. He's exploiting it to fearmonger across the city. And I say that because there are a few things that I do know. I have spoken to other city council members that have told me there are statutory limitations. There are statutes that are on the books that make it virtually impossible to take any money away from metro schools. There are statutes on the book that set a minimum threshold upon which schools can and must be funded. To claim that there's going to be a 25% cut across the board is not just absurd. It goes against statutes that are actually operating in metro government right now that will just not allow it to happen. So if you don't want to take my word for it, go look some of these things up and take the law's word for it if you really need to. That's totally fine. Aside from all that as well, I just don't understand the logic behind someone coming out and saying that the first thing we're going to consider cutting is the only reason why government is there to operate. As far as a libertarian perspective is concerned, the only reason that government is there to operate is to provide some of these things that Cooper is talking about cutting right now. So you're going to go after the sole reason why government is there to exist as the first thing you're talking about cutting. It's asinine. It's absolutely absurd. Okay, so that's where we are. That's brought you up to speed a little bit. This is why I say it's a bit of a hostage situation, because Mayor Cooper has come out and said, well, citizens of Nashville, if you don't give me this 34%, we're going to start cutting everything from you.
I'm going to spank you. I'm going to spank you, and then I'm going to spank you again.
Now, if it wasn't bad enough that Mayor Cooper's holding its citizens hostage, yesterday on Brian Wilson's morning program, a program here in Nashville, and again, this is what happens. This is a national story as well. This is what happens in California. It's what's happening in Nashville. It's one of the reasons why the second story we have, it's one of the reasons why the Daily Wire's jumping ship from LA to come over to Nashville here. Little they know we're doing some of the same things, but they're trying to get a better situation. Allegedly, so Brian Wilson said yesterday morning, it has been reported that Mayor Cooper is now, dare I say, even intimidating other metro government employees with this information. He's essentially walking around harassing these people, having different meetings with different department heads, making them aware of how much he will need to cut if they don't support this referendum, if they don't support the property tax increase. If this referendum passes, he's making them aware. So basically, he's saying, like, support my property tax hike or I'll fire you. And the real frustration with all of this is that our state comptroller came in yesterday and unequivocally said, I don't care what the mayor wants to do. I don't care what your political affiliations are. I don't care what your bias says, what you want to cut first. I get that call. If you guys cannot pass a balanced budget, regardless of what happens out here, regardless of if this referendum passes and they cut y'all's stuff down and you're left with a $332 million budget, I don't care what you want to cut. I get the final say in that. Go listen to this thing. It's fascinating. That
is so intense, Grant. I'm so jelly that you've already listened to that. See, that's the kind of stuff I really love listening to, is some of the real deal. When, like, people talk for real in a government chamber, and it's not posturing, it's not grandstanding, it's not what they're saying, right? I love that, and I'm so glad that you watched it. I'm curious, could you give me a little bit more from that? So he basically said, he didn't come in there and say, citizens of Nashville, you shouldn't pass this.
No.
He didn't say that, right?
No, he came in,
talked directly. He wasn't talking to the voters when he was there at the council meeting. He was talking to the council members and to, I guess, the administration by proxy as well, saying, if you can't get your stuff together, I'm not going to tell you how to get your stuff together. That's not my job. Not yet. When I start telling, and this is me kind of paraphrasing what you're saying, making sure I understand. He said, when I start giving you advice, it won't be advice. Yeah. Right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. I'm not here to give you advice. I'm here to warn you that when I give you advice, they will be orders. Because you are, I don't know, it's property of the state isn't the right way to say it. You are a ward of the state of the state of Tennessee.
It was a little bit like a father speaking to a child. That's exactly what it was.
Well, but that's what it is. I mean, it's what is it? Nashville is a function of the state. It gets its sovereignty from the state of Tennessee, not from itself.
Well, and that's exactly how we addressed it yesterday. Not to be totally clear and totally fair, I really should have linked this in the show notes. It was a 7-hour meeting last night, so I wasn't able to cut it out. To be fair, but I'll link that. I'll show it's on the Metro government's YouTube page. It wasn't posted as of this morning, the meeting from last night. I'll post that this afternoon when it gets up there. It's in the first 28 minutes of the thing, so I'll give you the time tag too. But the state comptroller came out and essentially said, to be fair, he did say, if this thing passes, you guys are going to have a headache. A massive headache to deal with. He dealt with the reality of what's about to happen. He said there are some outrageous curves that are about to come. And he said, if you do not start to get your house in order now, like today, you are going to have a dire situation come, I don't know, January of next year. This thing passes on December, let's say it's December 6th. If they don't start working currently about figuring out what to do with their money situation, on January 1st of next year, they're going to have an absolute fill in the word show. And he finalized by saying, so recognize what you're about to deal with. Recognize that I am not here to make a political claim one way or another on what this referendum is or what y'all want to do. Moreover, it's not up to Mayor Cooper to say what gets cut. I have that call. It's not up to you Metro members of the council to say what gets cut. That's my call. If you can't balance your budget, if you don't do the balancing budget thing, I make that call. And this analogy perfectly encapsulates what's happening right now. I'm not exaggerating. Go read this. He said, it's like you come to your father and you need $20 to go to the movies. And I asked you what you're going to buy at the movies. And you say, I'm going to buy this, this, and this. And I give you that $20. So every week you have to submit to me what you want to spend the following week. You have to have cash on hand to spend the following week. And I have to approve it or turn it down every single Friday. Dude, it is the definition of micromanaging. It's analogizing of a father to a son. And he quite literally said, it's as if you're going to ask your father for money to go to the movies. He was trying to put a bit of a scare into him of like, don't make me take this over, because he doesn't want to take it over either. Now, let me say this one last thing here and just break all this down. The stuff that they're talking about cutting, it's all absurd.
Oh, man, hey, and make sure you get to, Grant, their liabilities. Because what I've been saying, and I think you've agreed with me since this whole thing started, is the only reason this makes any sense. Not even the pensions makes the 34% property tax make sense. But when you get to how much Nashville is over leveraged and how much of every dollar is going to service debt, that's when it starts making sense of how desperate they are. But that is mismanagement. That is, I mean, it's just awful. And I love in that, I'll let you get to it, but like, that's the key. The pensions, it's okay, because we do have like a lot of city employees in Nashville compared to cities of similar size. That's a thing, but it's how much loans they've taken out, and for what? And for what?
Well, and the Beacon Center does their pork report every year, right? And since 2015, the Beacon Center has calculated that a little over $300 million in just nonsense spending, has been accumulated. So in 5 years, the Metro government has spent $300 million plus and stuff. That's just absurd. It's just ridiculous. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Now, Sean just said Nashville has twice as many employees per 1,000 residents as more populous cities of Louisville, Indianapolis, and Jacksonville. That is also a problem. That's also a problem because we have 2 times the number of employees. So when Mayor Cooper comes out and says, we need to start cutting, we're going to have to cut a bunch of Metro employees. I don't know. The rational individual may say, well, so what? It's working for Louisville. It's working for Indianapolis. It's working for Jacksonville. Those cities have more people than we do, i.e., one might think rationally, they might need to provide more city services than a size city of Nashville does.
Man, I don't know. Maybe Jacksonville is a big land city. Talking about police, fire, and ambulance, Jacksonville has a lot more land than Nashville will ever have. It's big. I think it's the biggest city land-wise in the United States, Jacksonville is.
Well, and if we have half the employees they do, right? Half the employees, and apparently according to analysis again, that's not first true. It is Florida. But according to the analysis again from the Beacon Center, that's where this is coming from. Nashville Metro employees defined benefit pension plans do not require any contributions from their own employees and have cost taxpayers more than $696 million since 2015. I'll read that again because it's true. Nashville, Metro employees' defined benefit pension plans do not require any contributions from those employees and have cost the taxpayers more than $696 million since 2015. Man, that's if you can get a Metro government job, apply today. Or maybe don't, because
which no big deal as long as my tax rate stays the same, right?
Dude, right.
Like no big deal. Good for them. And then like whatever, I mean, not going to be bitter. It's like, that's fine. As long as you don't moralize to me about why you need more taxes.
And let me say this too, Shine. Only in Nashville, I stole this from a guy named Lonnie Spivak here in Nashville. He put this out last night, but only in Nashville could a proposed 2% property tax increase be pitched to the people as a massive gutting of the operation.
As a cut, right?
Yeah. Like, we're still going up in taxes.
Like, even in the federal government, they say not adding things is a cut. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you stay at 0, it's a cut. But, like, not even the federal government often says a slight raise is a cut. Yeah. They don't even do that.
And here's the point of the Shine said, and then I want to hit some of these Facebook comments. We're already at the bottom of the hour. I didn't realize we were going this long, but we're just hyped about it.
This is the hottest thing.
It's
the hot potato.
And Sean and I have been on this since the very beginning, man. We've been busting our little booties over it the entire time. We've been trying to kill it all across the state here, and but Sean said a second ago, Nashville carries. Here's the number, man: $3.89 billion in liabilities. Nashville alone carries $3.89 billion in liabilities for other post-employment benefits from Metro employees. More than 10 times the liabilities carried by Louisville alone. I mean, all right.
So what did they have for it? I mean, did they build like 2 nuclear power plants or something?
Right, yeah.
Like, are the people of Nashville,
4 NFL teams,
are people
4
of
them.
Nashville getting free power because of this investment? I mean, you get what I'm saying? Like, there are so many ways you could spend almost $4 billion that could have produced capital or at least value. Like, what if Nashville had built a nuclear power plant with that and then said, you know what? Power's free. Move to Nashville. That would have been a great investment, Or even, what do they call it? Not natural gas, because natural gas became super cheap 10 years ago. Yeah. Like, it's almost, with what they got coming out of the ground in Montana and North Dakota and Texas, natural gas is like less than $1 per unit. And if we just built 2 natural gas power plants in Nashville and said, okay, we're going to build these, they could have released bonds, right, to help build them. They could have taken out some loans and then said, okay, moved like the way people are doing with Wi-Fi, right? Mm-hmm. They could have done that with power and said, well, power is just going to be super cheap. So it's a great place to do manufacturing, great place for small businesses, and we're helping. And that, you know what I'm saying? But what did they spent the $4 billion on? Stuff that is a liability, stuff that they pay for, and then it constantly needs more money.
Right,
and it wasn't making money in the first place, and then it breaks down because it's 10 years old, whatever it may be, because it's usually a building that they're trying to get people to come to from out of state. That's what it usually is.
I mean, in this situation, if you're talking about if you're talking about post-employment benefits, so people that have worked for Metro government that no longer work for Metro government, that you're just taking care of and providing for, off into oblivion, like into the future of their lives. It's a great idea on paper. I understand, but I don't have that. You don't have that. I mean, Social Security may be dried up at the time that Sean and I are retiring, and y'all are as well. I just don't. What I'm saying is, if you can get a government job, it looks pretty darn cushy. And if you're carrying $3.8 billion in future liabilities for people that are not even working for the government anymore, that's the same problem that Illinois was having to the tune of $40 billion. It's the same problem California was having, promising government employees something that you can't pay for right now. And you got to figure out how to pay for in the future. So if you're trying to cut 300 something million, I don't know, man, figure out your liability situation. But the point of all this that Shine is making, that I'm making, is it just doesn't seem like Nashville has a revenue problem. It seems like they have a prioritization problem and a spending problem. I think that's fairly objective across the board. And to come on the back end of all that for Mayor Cooper and the Metro Council members to now claim that they're going to have to start cutting vital pieces that are the only essential functions of government as far as a minarchist is concerned, is just, it's nothing more than just pure fear tactics.
Which
it's
will
just
disproportionately hurt the people with the least amount of money.
Right?
You know?
Yes. Yeah.
That's what's
absolutely.
also why I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. You know, Grant, too, I also was thinking about this and how the government in our day and time does such a bad job, especially the executive branch, of using the bully pulpit instead of using force. Like, what if Mayor Cooper, around between the time of the tornadoes and the COVID really kicking off, had gone on national news and say, Nashville's struggling, we're releasing a new round of bonds that you can buy to help the city. And I don't know if it's going to be the best investment, but Nashville needs help. If you've ever came and had a great time, if you ever got married in Nashville, if you went to a birthday party in Nashville, if you went to a bachelorette party, or what's the one for guys?
Bachelor party?
Sorry, I'm an idiot. A bachelor party. You get what I'm saying? Like, if you've ever had a good time, buy a bond for $100. It would really help. They could have used that money as seed money to leverage it to get another loan, you know, to make up for things. And that would have been a really smart use and no force there. And I think there's a lot of wealthy people in Nashville that would have been more comfortable giving money than a demand of a 34% property tax. You get what I'm saying? There's a lot of very generous people in the Middle Tennessee area that have had a good time and want to see Nashville thrive and those kind of things. But why? Why does government always choose force over the bully pulpit? It's so weird because you would have had sympathy. I mean, the tornado stuff was all over, you know? I don't know. I think everyone would have, and I think a lot of cities could have taken that route and said, we need help. We're releasing bonds. Please buy them. You know, like war bonds back in the day when, you know, before we started printing money in the U.S. government, they released war bonds. They could have had tornado bonds.
Honestly, man, I think what you just said goes a little bit to Lisa's comment. Now, if you're, depending on where you're watching, Lisa just made a comment that was originally in Spanish, which is just, that's so awesome. Lisa, what's up? I don't know how you found us, but welcome to the program. Welcome to the family. That's incredible. Here's the translation. To Shine's point, this is what Lisa just said in Facebook. Biden's tactic to win the hearts of Hispanics is despicable. Hispanic, Cuban, Puerto Rico, Costa Ricans, Venezuelans are not stupid. God bless Trump 2020. Biden's out there doing this whole circuit now to win the Hispanic vote or whatever, and that's one of his main tactics out there. And maybe it's because he's squandered the black vote. I don't know. But the point that Lisa's making is that we are not a monolith. These voting base is not dumb. We know what's going on. We not only are well informed, we can educate ourselves and stay abreast to the topic at hand. And I think to Shine's point a little bit, I think some of this stuff to take advantage of is what we started this whole thing, this whole rant with, that there's such a severe lack of information, one, as to how local government works, two, this metro government, three, what the budgetary concerns or matters even are. So if someone comes out in the time of COVID, when we're already at a heightened, we'll call it 11, man. These numbers go to 11. Call it an 11 is where we already are. And then Mayor Cooper comes out and says, why don't we throw a little bit more fear on top of that, right? So you're already scared of the COVID stuff. Now paramedics aren't going to be able to respond if you do have a problem. That's what's going on in the back of people's minds. People are not this dumb, though. At least he's correct. People are not this dumb. Whether it's Biden, presidential candidate, whether it's Mayor Cooper here in town, or frankly, whether it's even some Republicans. I don't care if it's left, right, middle, in between. It doesn't matter to me. People are not this dumb. The access and availability to information that we've had is never had this type of thing before. Doesn't mean we have heightened IQ levels, don't get me wrong. But it's harder to spin a narrative now that goes against truly factual information. And let me just finish this last local story out because it's going to be dead if we don't touch on it tomorrow. But talking about sort of migration of people that are like-minded, the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro's organization, or at least he's sort of the front man of. He is now, you see this, Sean? He's now announced that they're taking the whole project to Nashville. They're all coming over here.
Well, you know what's funny about that is I know another person in L.A., and I don't want to, I'm not giving out the whole thing yet, but there's someone in L.A. that's a kind of conservative / libertarian who's looking at Tennessee, and he's part of a group of like 30 or 40 people that are looking at Tennessee and maybe moving to either Nashville or Knox County. People in L.A. are looking for places to go. Yeah. And Texas is like the 6 years ago place.
right?
Like Joe Rogan's he's behind the 8 ball moving to Texas. Like Glenn Beck moved to Texas when in like 2010 or something like that. That's when it was cool to move to Texas. But now, now that me and Grant are like have such a high profile in Tennessee, that's the time to move to Tennessee. Strike while the iron's hot, Ben. He's just trying to meet us, I think. I think he's just trying to meet you, actually. He's trying to meet you.
Yeah, that's what it is.
He just wants to be closer to you, Grant. And I understand that.
Honestly, in some sense, it's going to be good for the voting base as well, because I think they have 80 plus employees, and something to the extent of 80 or 90% of them are coming with them. So a lot of people are saying, I don't know, even if you don't like
the biggest, online media companies in the United States. Consistently the top Facebook shared story every day. Consistently. Yeah. I say every day, not every day, but most days. Consistently.
No, again, even if you don't like Ben Shapiro, a lot of people are saying, well, 75, 80 employees that they have, a large percentage of them, I think 80 to 90% are moving over there with them. And I'll take that voting base all day long. I got no problem with that. I'll take that voting base all day long. Tommy Lauren's now living in Nashville. Ben Shapiro's about to live out here in Nashville. Hey, man, it's contingent of, good Republican, younger folks that are carrying the torch into the next generation of just like trying to make something work.
Now, let me say this, though. Conservatives from L.A. are a little different.
I know. Yeah, you're right. You're right, dude.
Conservatives in LA aren't too much better than our conservative Democrats. To be fair,
that's true.
You know why? Because they're used to paying monstrous tax rates. They're used to being overregulated. They're used to people telling them what to do on their own property. Yeah, which is something we ain't used to around here. So, like, they just don't even have that bone in their body that rejects things. They're just like, they've been used to being slowly tortured by their government. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's something to watch out for, because then they're like, well, 34%, what's better than 50%, I'm not necessarily saying that's the case, but that might be something like that could be the logic in almost any circumstance. It's like, well, it's still not as bad as LA. So, yeah. So something to watch, because Tommy Lauren, like, I've met her. She's like less conservative in person. Yeah. A little bit. Yeah. It's obviously a character a little bit. Like, she's over the top so much. Like, yeah. She's wearing this bright, like this super red pantsuit. She, I don't know. I'm going to move on from here. But I'm excited about Ben moving away from LA just for his own psyche, really. Like for his own mental health. They're going to get over here. And I think a lot of conservatives in LA are used to grandstanding. And the technical definition of grandstanding is you make an outrageous, obtuse point about something. You just speak nonsense, a little bit of nonsense, knowing that it's never really going to go anywhere because you're in such a minority that you don't really ever have to, you don't have to put up. There's no put up or shut up type thing. It just doesn't matter. So you can say whatever you want to as far as what's in the conservative vein to just gin up your base, knowing that you never really have to be held accountable for it. And it's been a little bit too I don't know, I'm not trying to be too caustic with it, but it is what it is. When they get out here, now all of a sudden, if you start presenting some of those uber conservative ideas, not only will people agree with you and listen to you, they will do something about it over here, right? So I think you're right, man. I just don't know if these conservative, LA folks are really used to having, at least in the Tennessee sense, what we like to claim genuine liberty. Now, we could do better. We could do much better, and we're trying to get better every single day. Speaking of getting better every single day, let me pull up the last national story here, man, or at least the first national story, because I just realized, Sean, I got to be on a call right at 10, so I may have to let Sean take us out of the show. But in the last 20 minutes we have remaining here, speaking of uber liberty and speaking a little bit of these dual systems of justice that we have, I don't quite know how I feel about this story, but let me just get y'all's take. It's totally off topic, but here's the New York Post headline. Jimmy Carter, President Jimmy Carter. Now, I'm one of these guys that believes if you're president once, the title remains as it should, okay? There's a certain amount of reverence that owes to the office and the title itself. President Jimmy Carter admits his son smoked pot, marijuana, with Willie Nelson on the roof of the White House. Which the story itself it's a cool story, man. It's a cool story. Now, I've never really been all that open about my feelings on marijuana legalization or otherwise, but I don't know. We can get into that if you want to. Let me just tell the story real quick, and you guys make it up for yourself. Here's the entire story. Former President
called President Jimmy Carter, former President Jimmy Carter, admits in a new documentary that one of his sons smoked pot with Willie Nelson on the roof of the White House. Carter, who's now 95. For real? I mean, I should have known that. I just didn't know it was 95 already. Man, that guy's he's kicking a line. Dude looks good for 95.
He's that Southern Georgia dude. Those people are tough.
That's right. It's that Southern Georgia.
It's all that heat, no trees, you know?
Right. Yes, true. All that heat, no trees. Carter, who's 95, was asked about the legendary country crooner's previous accounts of puffing a big fat Austin torpedo atop 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in the documentary Jimmy Carter, Rock and Roll President, which apparently came out in theaters this last week. I had no idea. But here's what Nelson said. Willie Nelson says that his companion that shared the pot with him was one of the servants at the White House. Interesting choice of words, but we'll go on.
Very interesting choice of... That's weird, right. Nelson.
I know. Now, Carter responded by saying, that's not exactly true. It was actually one of my sons. Now, that's an even better way that this story came to light.
Oh!
I'd assume that it was Willie Nelson that sold the son out, at least reading the headline, but it wasn't. It was President Jimmy Carter, former President Jimmy Carter himself, who said, no, it wasn't a servant of the White House. It was my son. Carter, who has 3 sons, did not identify his pot-puffing kid, but it appeared clear that he was talking about Chip, who has famously been linked to in the incident in the past. Now, Chip Carter asked about his dad's comments in the documentary. He replied, my guess is it's true. If you're talking about me and Willie, yeah, he was my friend. This is Chip Carter said. He told the filmmakers that Nelson had been jamming at the White House that day on September 13th, 1980. And in the break, he said, let's go upstairs. He said, we just kept going up and up until we got to the roof where we leaned against the flagpole at the top of it and lit one up. He said, if you know Washington, the White House is the hub of the spokes, the way it was designed. Most of the avenues run into the White House. I presume he was telling that just so you can get the image of, like, have you ever stood atop the White House roof and smoked a Fat J? I don't think so. You know what I mean? Like, I can tell him with Willie Nelson of all people.
Willie Nelson was just like riding habit. I'm sure he's been at many places and he's like, let's just keep going upstairs.
I just have one. Yeah, I have one with me right here.
Can we just keep going upstairs, man? I'd love to see the roof. He probably wasn't even thinking about it. He probably didn't even like hesitate. He just got up the roof and he didn't even ask permission. Bet.
Judy said in Facebook, JP says he misses you. Jonathan said,
tell JP I said hello. That's my little cousin.
Oh, nice. Teresa just said, hi, guys and gals. Kelly on the story at hand says, who cares? But that's freaking awesome. Jessica said, choose edibles more often, save your lungs. She's talking about edible marijuana. All right, so look, this is the reason why I brought the story up is one of a few things. I kind of sometimes like to pull. Real News has this strangely eclectic mix of audience of people that are hard conservative. I mean, like traditional Reagan-esque type big R Republicans. And I think we start there, a little bit there, and span all the way over into, I don't know if we have any legitimate anarcho-capitalists that listen to the show all the time, but we do have quite a few that are an active part of this community. Sherry, of course, Daniel, you see him in Facebook all the time. By ANCAPs, I mean to the right on the political spectrum of libertarians. ANCAPs, anarcho-capitalists, meaning that the government should be virtually nowhere. It should all be privatized. The entirety of all of it should be privatized, right? I think that's our spectrum range. So I wonder sometimes how people fall in this audience on this story of Jimmy Carter's son smoking weed with Willie Nelson on the top of the White House for a couple different reasons. One, how do you feel about the marijuana legalization situation? And two, based upon how you feel about this, does this not frustrate you a little bit? I mean, I'm conflicted in this story here because part of it's like, well, that's a cool story to tell. It's a fun story to tell, right? It also humanizes these people a little bit to me because they're not infallible, right? They're not these I don't know.
I already knew Jimmy Carter was fallible. I knew that already.
That's right. Yeah, no, for sure. But the president, whoever holds that office, him and his entire family, they do and choose to do things just like I choose to do. And on the other hand, it's also, to some extent, I'm fairly certain, somebody tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm about 100, and let's call it 99.9% repeating certain that marijuana was still illegal federally while this was going down. And the fact that President Carter knew about it, in some sense, I don't know, bro, am I going too far to say, like, okay, this is dude, one of those.
You got to know the history of the Jimmy Carter White House.
Yeah.
Legalization of marijuana was on the table during that administration, and they worked very hard to try to get legalization. And let me give you some more history and why the Willie Nelson thing, it made all the sense in the world to me, because I know the history of the Jimmy Carter White House. Let's see. This is from Time magazine in September 3rd, 1979. Amid all the festivities aboard the Delta Queen came an ominous telephone call for President Carter about 8:15 last Thursday night. It was the new Attorney General, Benjamin Silivetti, who regretfully told the president a stunning piece of news. He had just ordered the FBI to undertake a preliminary investigation of Carter's two closest White House aides, Chief of Staff Sam Hamilton Jordan and Press Secretary Jody Powell. The reason? An allegation that Jordan had snorted cocaine during a visit to New York's Studio 54, a celebrated disco club. The first version of the story said in April 1978 that Powell had been with him at the time. And if he was with him, he probably did more than do cocaine. And because that happened, marijuana legalization never happened, because they had to seem tough on crime, tough on drugs. You get what I'm saying? And cocaine, you know, had very heavy penalties. I think marijuana still did too at the time, nationwide. But that's why I'm not surprised. Like, these people in the Carter White House were the people who were behaved were smoking weed. The people who were partying too hard were going to the most notorious club in America and doing, you know, God knows what, you know. But that's a funny piece of history that most people don't know. And I just thought I'd throw that out there for the real news people and give them a little bit of trivia.
That's super interesting, man. That was a great thing to add in right there, for real. That seriously helped contextualize all this. And Facebook is not exactly entirely conflicted, but let me just read some of the responses here, right? Eric said, have you ever seen the roof of the White House on weed? He's talking about a half-baked reference. Great show.
Me and Grant were quoting half-baked down by the beach.
Yeah, down by the beach. Eric said, ANCAP in the house. I guess Eric considers himself an ANCAP. He says most days anyways. It's a very thick subject for another time. That's very true. Eric is one of these people that leans heavy libertarian. I'd say minarchist at best. I like to consider myself a minarchist as well, although I think I might lean a little bit more statism from time to time. But Eric is one of these people that I think would say, yeah, he says legalize it. Teresa, who just hopped in Facebook, says legalize it. Kelly just hopped in and said hashtag free the weed. But conversely, Jonathan makes an interesting point here. He says, with people sitting in prison for decades over ganja possession and such, no, I don't think it's humanizing. I think it's the most hypocritical act any sitting president and family can take. Honestly, bro, like he has a point. I don't know if Jonathan's speaking to the idea of his personal feelings as to whether or not.
That's totally true, and that's what he was dealing with the cocaine charge, because it made all the other stuff. Because I think there were people who knew about his son smoking weed with Willie Nelson. You know, because Willie Nelson probably told people, you know. Probably.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like all that came out at the time. That was really the criticism. There's these people in jail, and you guys get to do things that other people don't get to do. If anybody else had gone to Studio 54 and been busted, blah, 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 blah. If anybody else had done something on the White House, on the roof of the White House or on the lawn, or a block away, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
A block away. And that two-tiered system of justice is a problem we're still dealing with, even though it's a cute, fun, kind of anecdotal story. That is at the heart of it, the real issue, the two-tiered system of justice.
Yeah, and I think Jonathan's dead on correct about that, which is why, you know, I don't know if Jonathan's making a point as to whether or not he thinks it should or should not be legalized, but he's 100% right. And that's what struck me so much about reading this story. Regardless of how you feel about the marijuana legalization thing going on, I think Jonathan has possibly the best point of the program. I mean, of this story so far is just that. If it is illegal, think about the human toll that it's taken across America for the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, let's call it for real, legitimately millions, if not tens of millions of individuals whose life has been upended and destroyed by what the justice system has done due to marijuana possession. Now, some might say, well, it was the marijuana that did that to him at first, Mr. Henry. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The point for right now is that simple possession 3 times in a row in some states will get you in jail for a very long period of time. Simple possession meaning a very small amount. You're
usually less than an ounce. Usually less than an ounce.
You're not selling to anybody, man. You're not a drug dealer.
personal use, being caught with personal use amounts for 3 times will get you thrown in jail for a lot of times 10 to 20.
And that's what I'm saying. Those 10 to 20s. That's what Jonathan's remarking on. Those hundreds of thousands or millions. I don't have the stats in front of me, but the human toll that has been taken of those 10 to 20s, those years and years, decades, centuries worth of human life that has been taken. Fathers leaving their sons, leaving their daughters, entire generations growing up without loved ones, without a father figure, primarily father figures, but let's say, yes, mother figures as well. The destruction of the family unit. These aren't tangential issues either. It's not like it's unrelated to the enforcement of marijuana possession. This is a very real cost to American society. And I'm not even necessarily at this point advocating for or against legalization, decriminalization, recreational use, none of that stuff. That's not my point of this little rant. My point of this little rant is to draw attention to what Jonathan was saying. He's saying, while they're sitting up there on the roof of the White House because he's Willie Nelson and Jimmy Carter's son, they never have to worry about any of this human toll. They would never have to worry about some Secret Service agent coming up there and smelling marijuana and locking him up. For me, it would be outrageous to even think about. Could you imagine that headline in 1981? Jimmy Carter's son arrested for marijuana possession. Really? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, we just had a comment there from Eric, said, research Freeway Rick Ross. I want you to know, Eric, if you can find it, I think it's on SoundCloud. We've interviewed him twice.
Yeah.
Did we get to ever interview him in person?
No, he was never in town for the time we could do it, but he's been on the program multiple times.
He's been on the program multiple times, and there's a lot of things about the drug war. And it's more well-documented now than it's ever been. But it's not the main reason I think it's a problem is the two-tiered system of justice. It's the government for thee and not for me kind of thing. And I don't like it. It's that disparity to me that's the issue. I don't even think it's the reality of it for me that's the issue. Like, is it dangerous? Is it not dangerous? That's not even really the issue. It's that some people can do it and get away with it, and other people are in jail for decades.
Right, man.
And that's a problem.
It is. And that was the thing that struck me most in this story and why I had such a problem with it when it first came up and when we were first talking about it. And it looks like Facebook's, at least agreeing with that part as well. Teresa says, pardon them. It's messed up. Jonathan says, if we're going to put citizens in jail for it, why should the president's family smoke it on the top of the White House with impunity? 100% correct. Kelly said, Willie Nelson for president. Why not? Honestly, bro, let's finish with this story too. I don't even have it linked to the show notes, but just because Kelly said Willie Nelson for president, I saw this hashtag that almost became trending over the weekend that said Joe Rogan for president. And what they were talking about, Sean, if you just want to randomly Google some story that comes up, just showing the background that we're not making this story up. Over the weekend, it was proposed by Joe Rogan and some of his crew and some of the people that work with Joe Rogan that Joe Rogan would host a 4-hour presidential debate between President Donald Trump and Joe Biden in his studio, no audience, no break, just unfiltered questions, Joe Rogan style. And somebody...
Man, and Fox News has the best headline out of everybody else. Fox, and it's because it really gets to the heart of the interesting part of the story. Fox News headline, Trump accepts invitation for fourth debate moderated by Joe Rogan. That's the way to tell the most of the story in one sentence. All the other, CNN's headline was trash.
Yeah.
But that Fox News headline, that just gets right to the heart of it. The proposed debate would be 4 hours and in a room with no audience and presumably no help. Nobody whispering in your ear giving you all the right answers.
By the way, Shine, sometime we should do an entire segment breaking down the lens that Shine views headlines through. It's something that he's curated over 20 plus years almost of looking through politics, drudging it every single day, all the stuff that comes along with it. The lens that he's able to view and synthesize information through just headlines alone is fascinating. And I'm saying it's like Rush Limbaugh level sometimes, because Limbaugh even said openly in the last year or two of his program, he didn't even read articles anymore. He just reads headlines. So it's this weird sort of nirvana state you can hit, I suppose, sometimes where you're just like, I've attained it. I can now see what's going on. But he's right.
It's kind of like staring into the void, though. It can make you crazy. Like Nietzsche said, those who stare into the void looks back.
Yes, that's right. But look, so here's the story. Morning Glory. what was trending over the weekend and why it tipped me off from what Kelly said. Kelly said Willie Nelson for president. Some people are now saying, well, if that were to happen, Joe Rogan, a 4-hour uninterrupted debate with, moderating this debate between Trump and Biden, that would end up in the result of Joe Rogan being president. I was like, yeah, probably, dude. That might be the lowest.
Well, someone was trying to get The Rock to run 2 years ago, and he actually,
right?
I think, even formed an exploratory committee and ran ads to see how much traction he could get. I think it was in 2017. They were like testing the waters, and comparing Joe Rogan to someone like Reagan may be a little bit of a stretch, but comparing him to The Rock, he looks a heck 100%. Of a lot better.
Yeah,
they've tried to push Oprah out there. They've tried to push Bill Gates out there. You get what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to think of all the people that are kind of Trump-esque, like not politicians.
Jesse Ventura was. Look at where Jesse Ventura attained, right?
Well, and he's ran for president. He's gotten a percentage of the national vote before.
Right now, Jesse Ventura is a little bit unhinged from time to time, but dude became governor of an entire state, so it's something to write home about, clearly. And a guy like Joe Rogan, man, I'm telling you, someone just said a second ago, Kelly said, if Joe Rogan would host a debate, the entire world would watch, and it would be absolutely fantastic. And dude, she's not playing. She's not kidding.
It would be the biggest interview. It would be the biggest thing that's ever been on a screen, ever.
Yes.
That's what I would say. It would be bigger than anything that's ever been on television, anything that's been on a screen, ever. And it would be remembered as the time the world changed. That's why it won't happen, probably.
Right? I know.
Because why would you even have television after that day? Why would you even have cable after that day? Why would you even have CNN, MSNBC, and I hate to say it, like even Fox News? Why would you even have those when, 6 billion people over the course of like 5 or 10 years would watch that thing? You know what I'm saying? And it would be studied in college classes because it's like, this is when it changed. 30 years before that, you had Larry King Live. 30 years before that, you had the anchors on ABC, NBC. He's like, and now Joe Rogan, and it's a different world.
It's not like we're hyping up Joe Rogan. What Shine is talking about, it would be a marker in history, a definitive turning point when the entire populace of America stopped dealing with the nonsensical minutia, which is a term that I love so much. They stopped dealing with the nonsensical minutia of the mainstream and realized there is a viable alternative. It would be beautiful, man. It's not just because it's Joe Rogan. It's just Joe Rogan's fitting that slot for the time being. If we could actually make this happen, call it a 1 hour, 2 hour, I don't care. It doesn't have to be full 4 hours, but some unadulterated, in your face, who's the real person? How good are they really? Crucible style moment to test and train these people through Joe Rogan, who asks the questions that everybody's wanting to ask. It would be an absolute turning point in history. Hey, man, we don't need Joe. We could do it ourselves, man. And Spotify, I'm sure they just have to be salivating over this. Hey, to all the people that watched this morning, we love you. Eric, Teresa, Kelly, Jonathan, Jessica, I said a second ago, all of our folks. We love you for real. People that I'm forgetting to name right now that are watching across any of the platforms, YouTube, Twitch, whatever else. We love you being a part of the family. Anything you need from us on any particular day, just reach out to us. Click the Evernote links in the top of the show note. Go to the GoFundMe. Help out Uncle Joe, Jessica's uncle, as much as you can. Guy was struck by an actual SUV, man. Terribly tragic story. Prayers for him. Spread this message around. We love y'all for real.
Share, subscribe.
Like, share, subscribe to The Real News. Grow the community. We love y'all. See you tomorrow.